this is question 1, part 1. So it says, walk me through all the steps of depolarization and muscle contraction within the heart. So that's what we're going to focus on, depolarization and muscle contraction. So we're going to start with muscle contraction first and just talk a little bit about cardiac tissue and what makes it so important. So cardiac tissue, we're going to find it within this white space here. It's going to sit all throughout the white space, all throughout here. And why is it important? What is unique about it? So cardiac tissue has something called intercalated discs, which are going to allow for a rhythmic contraction. This is going to allow for the movement of blood along its system. So that's the end goal, right, is to move blood. So we know that when blood is flowing generally, we have about 30% of our blood that is going to be stuck in the bottom of the atrium. And it's going to need to contract in a way that moves this blood down and out. So something like we said, the intercalated discs, which are going to send electrical signals to single muscle cells called myocytes, which are joined together by these intercalated discs, which will allow the electrical currents to flow cell to cell. So what does that look like? So if we start it up here, it's going to move down in that top-down effect. Each of these are going to contract where the arrows are. It's going to move all the way down, and it's going to start, and it's going to move down and work its way all the way up. So this is important because it's going to move in a sequence. And that sequence is going to be extremely important when we look at where blood goes and whether that means it moves out of the aorta or out of the pulmonary arteries or veins. Wherever it needs to go, it's going to push blood out. So now that we've kind of looked at what that is and what it means and why an intercalated disc is important, we're going to look at depolarization or electrical signaling of the heart. So we're going to start here, and we're going to have our SA node. So this is right here. And an SA node is the pacemaker of the heart. It is going to set the heartbeat at 60 to 80 beats per minute. That's what the SA node is going to start. And it has something called inherent automaticity or spontaneous depolarization, which means that it needs no electrical signal to depolarize itself. So an action potential is going to start, and it's going to work its way down through the SA node because of its inherent automaticity, which will spread through the atrium. It's going to spread all the way out through here. And it's going to hit something called the AV node, which is going to receive the depolarization signal, and it's going to kind of delay it a little bit. And while it is delaying it, it's going to allow time for the blood that's left in the atrium to make its way down to the ventricles. So as I mentioned, the AV node is going to slowly send that signal down, allowing time for the blood to drain. But within this area, we have something called inert cells or electrically dead cells. So why is this important? So these inert cells do not actually transmit a signal of electricity. There's no intercalated disc here, which kills the transmission at the ventricles. So that means that all of the little yellow lines that we see here that are going to be moving will stop right here. But the signal that we've already had that the AV node has is going to continue to move down. It's going to move down through the left bundle branches, as well as the right bundle branches. Oops, sorry, spelled that wrong there. All the way down into the Purkinje fibers. And what that's going to do is it's going to contract and actually exert force that the heart can pump blood either to the lungs or out of the aorta or the rest of the body like we talked about. So that means that this signal is going to move down and up, which is going to squeeze these ventricles. It's going to squeeze those ventricles and push this up. So all the blood that was sitting in the ventricles after the blood has been pushed out from the SA node right here that would be then sitting in the ventricles is then going to be pushed out. So let's talk about a muscle contraction. So we talked about how we actually get that muscle contraction going and the electrical signals that need to move through it. But now we are going to talk about the electrical signaling, or what actually causes that electrical signaling to move through each muscle cell and cause the force that we need. So we've mentioned intercalated discs and what they do. So intercalated discs are part of something called a sarcolemma, which contains structures that are important in cardiac muscle contraction. This network of electrically connected cardiac muscle cells is what's going to create the functional unit or functional system, which is going to allow the depolarization to occur through the cells, or aka our rhythmic contraction, like we're saying, the top-down effect that we want. Just like any other muscle, the principal goal is to contract and relax, and the foundation for this is going to be a sarcolemma. So that's what this structure is going to be that you see on the screen right now. So something called myosin, actin, and titin, which is going to be our three main proteins that are going to start do the muscle contraction, basically. So our sarcomeres, like I said, contain those proteins, which is going to grab onto another protein. So myosin is going to grab onto actin. So if we look here and we see the red, this is going to grab on here. These are going to grab on and pull. And that's actin, which is going to be the flexing part of it. When myosin releases the actin, the muscle relaxes. But when this overlaps right here, this overlapping is what's going to produce the force. So it's going to cause that muscle contraction because this is going to get smaller. So we see here, this is going to get smaller. This is going to produce the force of a muscle contraction. This whole cycle is going to repeat again. So you have the cardiac tissue, intercalated disc. This is then going to repeat again. And we'd see it start at the SA node, go to the AV node, down the bundle branches, and back up to the Purkinje fibers. And this whole cycle is going to repeat each beat every single time that we have this, with the overlapping of fibers here and the pulling together to cause that small force. And then as it goes back out and this starts to relax, that would be your relaxation.